I'm going to be showing a presentation about photo locations in the areas of Buttermere, Crummock Water and Loweswater. Why not come and see how many locations there are? Well, good morning, and this is the morning of the video going up. As many of you are aware, I haven't been too well and I still haven't managed to get out. But in the last video I did talk about that I was doing a presentation. And it is my view that I wanted to do a series of presentations. So I am doing one to the 617 Club later this week about the the Derwent Water area, but I have put together and recorded a presentation about Buttermere, Crummock Water and Loweswater areas. So I'm now going to put up that presentation for you to watch, and hopefully you will enjoy it and find it informative. Welcome to this presentation about landscape locations in the Buttermere, Crummock Water and Loweswater area of the Lake District. So who am I? Well, my name's David Leeton and I go under the handle of Keswick Limey. And how long have I been into photography? As long as I care to remember. Certainly when I was at school, and that's many years ago, we had a darkroom and we used to mess around with things like doing double exposures. And then as I grew older, I actually had my own darkroom and did black and white processing. And then I moved on to getting bulk slide film, which I actually processed myself, 35mm slide film. And yeah, things continued on and things used to ebb and flow with the family commitments and work commitments, etc. So, and then came digital photography, and I could get back into the hobby without the need for a darkroom and chemicals, etc. My first digital camera was a Canon G3, a sort of small compact camera, as DSLRs were still quite prohibitively expensive at that point. But when I did progress to a full frame DSLR, I decided I needed to take the hobby a bit more serious. But why landscape photography, and why in the Lake District? I've never really been a photographer of people apart from families. I've always wanted to capture what I've seen around me, be that landscapes, cityscapes, etc. And I've also been a lover of the great outdoors. I must admit there's nothing better than be walking out in the fells and have the camera with you and connect with what you see in nature. So yeah, and I have this other sort of thing where I often say to myself, I'll see something and say, well I could do that. And that's maybe why I set up the business, although I haven't really pushed it or promoted it as much as I maybe could have done. And that's maybe why I got into YouTube, seeing some YouTube videos and saying, well, I think I could do that. So yeah, so that's the sort of thing. But obviously I do travel for landscape photography. I've been to Greenland, Iceland, just to mention two. I'm just in awe of this planet that we live in, and thus living in the Lake District. That's why that's the bulk of my images. And what's the aim of the talk? The aim of the talk is to encourage people into the Lake District to come and see the beauty, to give them some indication of what there is. In this video, in this presentation, we'll go around various locations, the great and the small, and I'm not saying that the images I will be putting up are all great, stunning images. The idea of them is to give you an idea of what is available, what can be seen. We get so many people rushing after these supposed iconic locations and they miss what else there is. So yeah, that's the aim of the talk. And when I'm going about, what gear do I use? The main camera is a Canon 5D Mark IV that is probably getting on for 10 years old now. I have a bunch of lenses. The top three I normally have with me. I only take out the 100-400 when I'm fairly certain I will need it, because it is quite heavy. And for doing the YouTube channels, etc., I've got a DJI Pocket 2 and a Mini 2, which is a drone. I have a 3-leaded thing bucky, which is the tripod, and I also use case filters. Right, so let's head off to Buttermere first, and we'll be using maps like this all the way through the presentation. And you'll see on there there's a yellow at the bottom end, what may be the northern end of Buttermere. There's a yellow marker, and there'll be markers used to show the area we're going to next. And that's where we're going to start, at the northern end, or the bottom of Buttermere, and that's the area where the water leaves the lake. The water goes out by the river and heads to Crummock Water. So we'll say that's the bottom of Buttermere. And there we have an image there looking up to the head of the lake, the head being where the water comes in. And we've got Fleet with Pike there at the far end, and that's a typical scene of Buttermere with all the colours. It is an autumn scene when we've got more colours. Obviously in the summer it's all can be very green, but in the autumn we do get the variety of colours. And just to the right of where I'm standing is Sour Milk Gill, and there are a couple of waterfalls there. Obviously there's a couple of images here. I've never managed to get an image that I'm really happy with, but we'll keep going back, we'll keep trying, but that gives you an idea. And there we are as we start to go round the lake. We're half looking across and half looking up the lake, and we can see the colours, etc. And what our aim is to come down where you can see the yellow marker, and that is Coombe Beck. It is a beck coming down off the high fells, and there are numerous, we'd even say, waterfalls on the beck coming down. So that's where we're going to head, but we'll be walking by the side of the lake. And it is a lake that, when I think of Buttermere, I tend to think of calmness and reflections. And obviously on this day, we've got a very calm day and we've got great reflections. We're sort of half looking across and half looking up to the head of the lake there. And then directly looking across where we've got reflection of the trees, the fells, etc. And then looking up to Fleet with Pike, which I just think is a very picturesque of the fells, particularly with when you get the reflection there of the nose of the fell. And then just looking directly across the lake to Hassan Country House. So yeah, that's that there. And then that brings us to Coombe Beck, and that is actually the first closest image I've took when I didn't really have time to go up, and that is taken with the drone. But that gives you some idea of the beck. But earlier this year, 2025, I did walk along to the top of the beck and then worked my way down, capturing various images of the beck as it worked towards the lake. Now that one particularly is my favourite. You can see obviously this is summer, so we are very green, not so much like some of the previous images where we've got more colour from the autumn colours, but that, and then the final image here is of a similar composition to the one of the drone, but obviously the colours and the amount of water is quite different. So having gone down there, we're heading to the southern end, or to the head of the lake, and as we go around excuse me, as we go around the head of the lake, there is a view looking up there. If we look up the centre, that's up Warnscale Beck, and somewhere up there is Warnscale Bothy, which is an iconic image, or an iconic location for getting images overlooking Buttermere, etc. But on this presentation I'm tending to stick to relatively low level locations. But we've got that, and on the left we've got Fleetwith Pike that we've already mentioned, and on the right there we've got Haystacks, and same location, a different time of year. And we've mentioned Fleetwith Pike there, and we see the yellow mark, and we're just on the very, very low slopes of Fleetwith Pike, and I just wanted to point out a couple of images that you're not going up very far, and there is this wooden memorial, and it is a memorial to Fanny Mercer, who was a climber, I believe, and was killed on Fleetwith Pike in 1887. And having taken that, if you turn round, we've got the view looking over Buttermere towards Crummock Water and Melbrake, etc. And next we're going to start going up the other side of the lake, and as we come we'll see there is a bit of a lone tree. It's quite a difficult one to take. We've got the tree there because it comes out of the rock there. It is very difficult to get a good position because of the rock. Again, but it's worth doing. And there's one looking back the other way. So what we're going to do is next we come to this where you see the yellow mark. This is sort of almost a little bit of a spit of land. It's very stony, where you can get out almost into the lake, and the images that you'll see coming up, most of the time the tripod was in the water, and we're looking back up to Warnscale Beck, and this is one of my favourite images in the Lake District. This was one where I was trying to repeat a previous image, but the weather just wasn't quite playing ball. Another attempt. Again, the light is really in the wrong position. We've got the nice reflections, but the light's not really playing ball. This is the day when I took what is my best image of this view, I think. We've got that one there, a slightly longer exposure, and then a longer one again, and with a polarizer we can see the stones in the water there, and that is I think my best capture of that particular composition. And then if we turn, having looked there, if we turn to our right, that is looking back at Coombe Beck and looking up as it where it comes down the side, with to the left High Crag and to the right High Stile, and then same direction, a different time of year. So then we're going to make our way down to the bottom of the lake and to the lone tree. But on the way down on this occasion, I think this was early morning, we've got the sunlight on the peaks as we look across to the other side. But here we have the lone tree, and it just amazes me how it has survived, if it's still there. It's a while since I've been, and every time I've been it seems to get worse. I just find it's not an easy tree to take a picture of. You've got to play around and you've got to get your angles right. So with here we've got the angle of the tree, so it's actually in the valley, that the trunk is in the valley as we look up to Honister Pass there. And then we've got the tree in other angles with using the branches in relation to the mountains around. Excuse me. And it's always good to have good light, but we don't always get good light. So that's Buttermere, and we're next going to go to Crummock Water, but we're going to start off by going to scale force. As you can see from the map, it is a little off from Crummock Water, and it's a little bit of a climb, but we're not going excessively high. And when you get there, if you've got the right footwear and waterproof wear, you can climb up the lower fall, and this takes you to the higher falls. And the high falls are the falls with the single highest drop in the Lake District. I'm not quite sure what the drop is, but it is the biggest drop in the Lake District. And on this occasion I was in my boots, so didn't go any closer because the water looked quite deep. But we can zoom in again and again. And I did go on another occasion, and I think this is it, when I did have my wellies on, so I could get closer to the bottom of the falls. And on this, I do like a slow shutter speed, but I did feel on this occasion a quicker shutter speed may be better, and I think it is. And then we come down, this is on the lower falls, which can get to at any point. There is a bridge going over the beck, but this is very easy to get to. You can see you've got the lower falls there in the centre, and to the left there are some rocks, and those are rocks you can climb up to get better views of the upper falls. And there's just another image taken at a different time of year. And then we're going to continue round Crummock Water. Crummock Water is an interesting lake to walk around. There's not a huge amount of possibilities for images, unlike say Derwent Water, which I've got a separate presentation on, where there seems to be lots. But we'll see here that the yellow marker is at a place called Low Ling Crag. So that's there, and from there you can look across to Rannerdale. So yeah, there we've got Rannerdale with the peaks around. On the far right you've got Rannerdale Knots. Is it Whiteless Pike behind, and the big one on the left is Grassmoor. Again, same view, different time of year. But we're going to go down towards the bottom of the lake, and it is a lake that up until fairly recently was used as a water source, and where we've got the yellow mark there is an old pump house used for pumping out the water. And from the side of the pump house we've got great views looking up towards the head of the lake, and the peak in the middle there, that is Rannerdale Knots. So that's a great view, same view, different time of year. But if we turn to our left, we can see that is Grassmoor, which is one of the bigger fells in the area, and at the bottom there you'll see there's a boathouse. And boathouses are always quite good for getting nice images, but I thought the boathouse and the fell looked quite good, and then thought I would take a wider angle shot, just showing you the whole vista there. So And then as we continue past the pump house, we go to the very bottom of the lake, where there is the sluice or sluices, where the water comes out of the lake. And there we've got one of a sort of weir, again looking up, and it can make a very good image. This isn't I don't feel is one of the best of the images, but here is another one, again same place, different time of year. We've got a calmer water, we've got the reflection in the water, an ideal position. There is a question mark over these because United Utilities, that is the water board that is responsible for these, is talk about changing them because they're not drawing water out of the lake anymore, and I think they don't want to have to maintain it, so there might be some changes, not quite sure what, but there we go. And from there we're going to come back round the other side and go to Ranadale, which we viewed from, we've already had a view. And Ranadale is renowned for its bluebells, and then we have a drone image of Ranadale and the footpaths, and you can see the bluebells there. I personally have never managed to get a good image of the bluebells at Ranadale, but there are plenty of them. Photographing bluebells does confuse me. It's not my best type of photography, but I'm told it's well worth going. Maybe I didn't go this year, but maybe next year we'll go again. And at the edge of Ranadale Knots, there's what is called Buttermere Halls. Halls meaning a low-lying neck of land or a narrow mountain pass. And on the top of Buttermere Halls we can look towards Buttermere. You can see there's Fleetwith Pike and Haystacks in the distance, but the water you see is the head of Crummock Water. You can't actually see the water of Buttermere from here, but this is obviously taken late evening, and we've got the sun as it's starting to set, lighting the tops of the peaks. And then again, same location, different time of year, different environment. The water's a bit more ripply, and everything must be summertime because everything's a bit green there. And just finally we get to the head of the lake, and an image looking slightly across, not quite up to the top, and the peak there is Melbrake. So next we're going to head to Loweswater, and specifically to Watergate Farm. That's where the yellow mark is there. Loweswater is a difficult lake to walk round. We can walk, we've parked here to the sort of far right of where you can see, and we've come round and you can walk round the southern bit of Loweswater, but when you get to the sort of west you have to come away from the lake, and then you're on paths. You can eventually cut round, but the other side you'll be walking on the road. But this is the view from Watergate Farm, looking across to Low Fell and Darling Fell. And again, slightly different time here, same view. Just gives you an idea of what can and can't be achieved there when you've got your camera. And we're just going to move along following this, I suppose, southern or southwestern shore into what is known as Home Wood, but we're staying on the shoreline of Home Wood rather than going up into the bulk of the wood, should we say. And then there is this point where there's a nice bench, and looking down the lake, or up the lake should I say, towards the head, and there we've got Grassmoor. and it's a very nice, pleasant place, and even when the weather's not so nice, it's a nice place to sit and enjoy nature. And home wood is quite an interesting wood, and I'm starting to get into woodland a bit more, and it might be worth a trip back there at some point, but I did find this very interesting tree in the wood. And from here we're going to carry on past the end of the lake and then cut back on ourselves, but going slightly uphill on the foothills of Burnbank Fell to where we've got the yellow mark there, and it's above Homewood, and there is this bench with this wonderful view. The first time I went to Loweswater, this was the impetus to go to get this image. So we went along the shore, and I said, you come along and you cut yourselves coming back, but up, so it's not excessively high, this, and then it's just an amazing view, looking down onto Crummock Water, onto Loweswater. You can see if you're just above the bench there, that is Crummock Water, and obviously Buttermere is further round. But yeah, as I say, on this occasion the weather was playing ball, and it's a stunning image. And then from here we can drop down back into Homewood in the higher bits of the wood, where we'll find Home Force. It's an interesting waterfall. It's got many different levels. From the sort of track in the wood, some of the levels are quite difficult to get up to. The lower level is relatively straightforward, but the higher levels, some of them, the higher you get, the more difficult it is to get up there, and it's difficult to really get a good composition. But we've got this one here, there's this fall here, and then again when there's a bit more water coming down, and onto the lower fall, where we're virtually we're only just off the track through the wood there, and we've got this nice image, and again a different time but with more water coming down. And here we have one of my better images, but just to finish off, we've got Warm Scale Bothy, and you can see there Buttermere, Crummock Water behind, and beyond is Loweswater. So thank you for listening. And where can you find me? I have a website, I'm on Instagram, there's my YouTube channel, I'm also on Vero, and on Facebook, although I don't really use Facebook that much. Alright, well hopefully you enjoyed that presentation. If you did, please click the thumbs up. If you like the sort of thing that I'm doing, why not subscribe? And any comments would be much appreciated. I'm hoping that the next video I'm actually managed to get out and record in the field. But I am going to do a series of these presentations, and will record all of them at some point to go up on the channel. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video.